heralds the dawn of a new era in Australian drag racing. 400 Thunder launched itself into the psyche of Australian motorsport with a kaleidoscope of colour. The action from the first round at Sydney Dragway showcased the full fury of side-by-side 500km/h racing. Today, it's Pro Stock, 1200 horsepower. Small block, carburetted engines running 6 seconds at over 300km/h. This is as close as it gets, where 1,000th of a second can make all the difference. In this class, if you blink, you lose. This is 400 Thunder. Time now for Pro Stock qualifying session number 1 here under very, very cloudy skies. Conditions not great for making horsepower with these cars. Rick Chilton and Bruce Leak on the start line now. Problems off the start line for Leak, but Rick Chilton, a 7-1-0. That is a brilliant run under these conditions. As I said, a lot of water in the air at the moment, a lot of humidity. That's very hard to make horsepower. Bill Perdicaris and Aaron Tremaine on the start line. And the multi-time national champion makes it count. That's a booming run there. 7.06, straight to the provisional number 1 qualifier for Aaron Tremaine. Bill Perdicaris, a few problems on his side of the racetrack, especially after that red light with that 8-second pass. Nino Cavallo now, a man who has got plenty of horsepower in that Dodge, taking on Emilio Spinozzi from Sydney. And that gorgeous Chevy Camaro goes through. A 7.12 though, not as quick as what we have seen from some of the other cars in this first session. Nino Cavallo, problems here, is 7.77. That car can run a lot quicker. Tyrone Tremaine now in the second of the team cars, taking on Lee Bektash, the Mopar man. And the reigning national champion does it again, a 6.97, the first of our 6-second runners for the weekend. Tyrone Tremaine runs only a tick behind his brother. And here is your Pro Stock qualifying list. Lee Bektash leading the way with that 6-second run, and things close, but I guarantee you they'll get closer as this weekend goes on. Second qualifying session rolling up to the start line. We've got Emilio Spinozzi in the Terra Civil Chevy on the far side of the racetrack, taking on Bill Perdicaris, the Sydney local, in the Ford. And Bill Perdicaris goes from the bottom of the field to the mid-pack. 7.04 with a 1 at just over 311km/h. Problems for Spinozzi, doesn't improve on his previous best. Nino Cavallo and Rick Chilton now, the Canberran. All big problems for Cavallo. That car looked like it might have got just a little bit sideways, and he did the right thing, drops the chutes, so he'll go into that final qualifying session without a representative run on the board. Let's have a look at the replay. You can see down the centre of the lane, and, well, no move from the car, just shoots out. Rick Chilton, on the other hand, good run for him, a 7.01. Time now for Bruce Leak, another of the men from the ACT. And Aaron Tremaine, a 7.02. He jumps up the qualifying list a long way. And Bruce Leak, a 7.13, an improving 7.13 from that racer. Tyrone Tremaine now, closest to screen, taking on Lee Bektash in the Dodge Avenger on the far side of the racetrack. Oh, and this man can do no wrong. A 6.98, it doesn't improve, but it's still only the second 6-second pass we've seen this weekend. He doesn't improve, but he stays number 1.
So Tyrone, your brother is also your teammate. Is he also your biggest rival, or do you guys work together relatively well?
No, not our biggest. We don't care who wins out of both of us. We're just, everyone's on the chase for Lee Bektash, and that's how it's going to be.
The Tremaine boys looking particularly excited about this third qualifying session. Moved to Sunday morning, courtesy of the little bit iffy weather that we had on Saturday afternoon. Conditions now a lot better. We've got Aaron Tremaine in the near lane and problems for Bruce Leake in the far lane. But what can the former national champion do? On a 6.95 is exactly what he is looking for. 6.95. He goes provisionally to the #1 qualifying spot with that. But given the conditions we've got, we're going to see some quick runs here. Rick Chilton closest to screen up against Nino Cavallo in the Dodge on the far side. And what another great side-by-side pass. This is what Pro Stock is all about. A 6.93 for Nino Cavallo. Takes over that #1 spot. Rick Chilton with a 7.06. Unfortunately for him, can't improve. But we've got Bill Perdicaris in the Ford taking on Tyrone Tremaine. Closest to screen. Expect big things out of Tremaine. Perdicaris can be a bit of a smoky as well. All homegrown horsepower here in both cars, and a 6.99 for Tyrone Tremaine. Perdicaris improves as well with that 7.02 at over 312 kilometres per hour. Tremaine, big speed for him as well, 315. We're seeing a lot of shuffling in this final session. This is what Pro Stock is all about. Emilio Spinozzi and Lee Bektash now, two racers who have done battles so many times over the last few years. Bektash looking to pick up that #1 qualifier, and he can't get there. The 6.96, not good enough to take over that #1 spot, but I tell you what, the Dodgers are looking strong this weekend. Here is your eliminations ladder. Emilio Spinozzi will take on Tyrone Tremaine. Rick Chilton will take on Lee Bektash. Bruce Leake and Nino Cavallo to do battle, and Bill Perdicaris taking on the multi-time national champion Aaron Tremaine. There is nothing like the roar of one of these naturally aspirated engines screaming their way through the burnout. That is what Pro Stock is all about. Finely tuned horsepower and usually very, very close racing. First matchup of the first round of racing under the 400 Thunder banner, and we have Tyrone Tremaine in that Tremainiac Racing beautifully presented Pontiac GXP taking on Emilio Spinozzi, the local Sydney sider from just west of Sydney Dragway in the Terra Civil Chevy Camaro. One of the most beautiful cars in this field and the only Chevy Camaro that we currently have racing in Pro Stock here in Australia. A little bit down as far as the qualifying order goes for Emilio Spinozzi, not where we would expect him to be. Usually he's in the top half of the field. Oh, and what a race to kick things off. I still don't know who won that. It was close, but no, it was Tyrone Tremaine. 0.29 on the tree, 6.97 at the other end of the racetrack. Emilio Spinozzi almost had him. He was first off the start line. It was a visible hole shot, almost 0.03 of a second on the start line, and it was almost enough to take the win, only thousandths of a second in it at the finish line. Tyrone Tremaine lives to fight another day here in Sydney, but unfortunately for Emilio Spinozzi, that's his day done. On board now, one of the best shots in drag racing. You can see them shifting through the 5-speed sequential gearbox. He hits the button on the steering wheel for the parachutes. The car starts to slow instantly, but unfortunately for Spinozzi, his day is done. Time now for the Mopar man, Lee Bektash, who has had a really, really good weekend so far, but unfortunately for him, coming into racing without that #1 qualifying plate, he is the reigning national champion in this class, and he is taking on Rick Chilton from the ACT, a man who has been racing Pro Stock for quite some time now, and has really started to come on in leaps and bounds courtesy of Bob Book Racing. the guy who does his engines over in the US, and he has really come on in leaps and bounds. Very, very impressive, the performances that we're seeing come out of that Rick Chilton camp. But Lee Bektash, this is one of the Goliaths of pro stock. He has won just about everything there is to win in this class. He got his first championship last year. He is a perennial championship contender, and he is looking to add another trophy to his cabinet here in Sydney. Another good, close race. Rick Chilton was absolutely psychic on the Christmas tree. 003, that's 0.003 of a second from perfect. But Lee Bektash used that big Mopar horsepower to drive around the outside of him and take the win. Bektash through to the semi-finals, but Rick Chilton did everything in his power there to take the win. As I said, 0.003 of a second from perfect on the Christmas tree. Bektash was good as well, 0.027 on the tree, but he was made to look like he was a day and a half late there by Rick Chilton. But fortunately, he has that Mopar horsepower under the bonnet, takes the win, and we will see him back for the semi-finals. Who he will face there? Well, it remains to be determined. It will either be Aaron Tremaine or Bill Perdicaris. They'll come up in a little while. But right now, we've got Nino Cavallo and the other of our Dodgers on track now, far side of the racetrack, and he's taking on another man from the ACT in Bruce Leake. Bruce Leake, a racer who has been in pro stock on and off for probably upwards of 20, 25 years. A very, very experienced racer, but hasn't done a lot of laps in this car over the last few years. Whether that will come back to haunt him in this race, I don't know. And Nino Cavallo, what can we say about the Cavallo Earthworks team? They come in as the #1 qualifier, absolutely brained the field, had 0.02 of a second up their sleeve over the #2 qualifier, Aaron Tremaine. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider that the entire 8-car field was only covered by 0.2 of a second, it kind of puts it into perspective. Another car with Bob Wilk Racing engines horsepower under the bonnet. Nino Cavallo will really be trying to convert that #1 qualifying spot into a win here in Sydney. Now, keep in mind, Nino is also a multi-time Superstock national champion. He knows how to win races. Still a relative newcomer to pro stock, has probably only been racing pro stock for upwards of maybe 4 years, but has certainly come on in full force this season and last. The crew walk away, both hoping that their teams and drivers have put enough into the cars. Who will we see in the semi-final taking on Tyrone Tremaine? And a great win there for Cavallo. He didn't push the Christmas tree, though. In fact, he was late on the tree. 1.22, but a 6.94 puts the exclamation point on that 6.93 that we saw from him in qualifying. Bruce Leake, a fantastic run for him. He went 0.75 on the tree, had a massive hole shot. In fact, he almost stole that race from Nino Cavallo, courtesy of that hole shot off the start line. But unfortunately, the 7.04 just not quite enough to maintain that advantage over the full 400-metre racetrack. And our final pair of cars to go down the racetrack in this first elimination round. It is Bill Perdicaris, the Sydney sider, taking on Aaron Tremaine, the multi-time national champion and the most successful racer, if you look at just purely wins and championships, that this country has ever produced in this class. He is a phenomenal talent, and he's still only in his very early 30s. It is a scary, scary prospect for the rest of the competitors in this class when you consider that he probably still has decades of driving ahead of him. And Bill Perdicaris is a man who does his own engines in that car, and a very, very competitive racer. Doesn't race the full championship by any stretch of the imagination, but when he does come out, he is definitely a smoky and definitely a threat to take down these big championship contenders. Out in front for Tremaine, and problems for the champ. Bill Perdicaris, I said he was a chance to win this one, and he certainly takes it there. A 7:03 for Bill Perdicaris. Look at the reaction time. He was a day and a half late, .250, as opposed to Aaron Tremaine's 0.46 on the tree, but it's enough to take the win. Our semi-final matchups will see Aaron's brother Tyrone take on Nino Cavallo, and our second semi-final will see Perdicaris taking on Lee Bektash.
Hey Lee, this car not only looks fantastic, but it is on song this weekend. Good job getting into the semi-finals.
Yeah, thanks for that. No, the car's been great. You know, it's been 687, 200 mile an hour. So we're just fighting to get back to that. I'm pretty sure the next pass it should be able to dip into the 80s again.
Facing Bill Perdicaris in the semi, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, Bill's, you know, he's got his own program happening. He's a great friend and a great racer, and I wish him all the best, obviously. But as long as we have a good, safe race and put on a good show for the crowd, that's the priority.
A quiet confidence there for Lee Bektash. We will see him up for the semi-finals and all the action after the break. East Coast National semi-final time now, and what a pair of matchups we have here. First pair, we'll see Nino Cavallo, our #1 qualifier, taking on the #4 qualifier, Tyrone Tremaine, who is really carrying the banner for the team after the first round of racing, because his brother, the multi-time national champion, Aaron Tremaine, got knocked out in the first round. That was it. He's out of here. So it's all on Tyrone Tremaine if he wants to uphold the family honour here. But you talk about family honour, the Cavallos, they have been around drag racing for a long, long time, and they are not used to losing. This is going to be a fantastic matchup here, the first of our semi-finals. Cavallo, when you look at it on paper, has probably had the advantage, but Tremaines always have something up their sleeve. Welded together. 694s apiece. A 694 with a 9, a whole shot win for Tyrone Tremaine, and the margin of victory there, 1,000th of a second. Incredible stuff. Tyrone Tremaine was first off the start line. Nino Cavallo ran a quicker ET, but man, oh man, the long and the short of it means they were welded together, and Nino Cavallo, our #1 qualifier, out of here in the semi-finals. Tremaine through to the final. A look at one of the busiest cockpits in drag racing. Look at the lock that Tyrone Tremaine had wound into that steering wheel, trying to get that car back across through the gears, puts the clutch in at the other end, and there's the fist pump. He's excited. He knows he's taken down that #1 qualifier. Second match up now, Bill Perdicaris and Lee Bektash. Very nice burnout for Bill Perdicaris. Lee Bektash taking his time in the dodge. Much more textbook from him, straight down the centre of the lane. That is where you want to be. As far as the burnouts go, the reason for the burnouts is to clean the tyres off and essentially lay down 2 nice, thick licorice strips of rubber down the centre of the lane to prepare you best for your run. That's the idea. That is why everybody does burnouts, and hopefully, the main aim being that they go as straight as possible. When they're nice and curvy, it makes it very, very difficult to go fast in a straight line during your run. Bill Perdicaris, probably a surprise winner in the first round of racing, taking out the multi-time national champion, Aaron Tremaine. And, well, for Lee Bektash, he didn't qualify the best, only 3rd best in the qualifying list, but took out Rick Chilton in the first round of racing. You can see Lee Bektash's crew chief, Tommy Lane, guiding him into stage. A man who has been a big part of Lee Bektash's success over the years. Big whole shot advantage to Lee Bektash. You'd have to think this one is over, and it is. Lee Bektash takes it with a 6.95, a very strong run. Speed down a little bit from what we've seen from the rest of the cars in this session, though, only 311 kilometres per hour, but a 6.95 enough to take it. Bill Perdikaris, he had a quick car under him, but just wasn't quick enough off the start line. He had to do a little bit of driving there as well. The car got just a little bit out of the groove, and, well, you see Lee Bektash out in front. You don't need to give him too many second chances, and he is on his way to the final round here in Sydney. So let's have a look at your finalists on paper. Reaction times, very, very close. Elapsed times, very, very close. This is going to be a good one.
Tyrone, you're into the Pro Stock final just by the smallest of margins.
Oh, that was probably one of the best races that have been around, I'd say.
What was it like from your perspective? You know, when did you know that you'd actually got it?
I put it in top gear and I looked across and I knew I was in front by next to nothing, and I thought, well, if I haven't red lit, I think I got him.
Awesome, and it's going to be a mega final too.
The final's probably going to be harder.
Confident?
Oh, I'll do my best. I'll go out there and I'll try as hard as I can, like always.
All right, good luck.
Thank you.
Finals time now here in Sydney. Oh, very, very ugly burnout for Tyrone Tremaine. That is not the ideal preparation coming into a final round of a championship event. Lee Bektash, a much more orthodox burnout. He is an absolute machine when it comes to driving this car. He hits his shift points every time. He does straight burnouts, keeps the car in the centre of the lane. That's what you need to do in Pro Stock. These cars don't like being messed with. They don't like moving around on the racetrack. You need to drive them as precisely as possible, and Lee Bektash does that very, very well. Tyrone Tremaine, he's no slouch though. If it wasn't for his brother, he'd probably be a multi-time champion himself. Speaking of which, you see his brother leaning in, getting him pumped up for this final round. I'll be honest, I don't think he needs too much pumping up. He's a pretty laid-back Queenslander when you talk to him outside the car, but once he straps into this car, puts the helmet on, the race face comes on. A similar story for Lee Bektash as well. He is one of the most easygoing guys you will ever meet in the pits, but he gets into that car and the red mist descends and they're set to go racing. Now, there's something going on here with Tyrone Tremaine's car. He's rolled through the staging beams. It looked like the top beam may have just been flickering a little bit there, and you can see his brother, Aaron Tremaine, guiding him into stage. Similar deal. He's throwing his hands in the air. He doesn't know what's going on here, Aaron Tremaine. The crew looking desperately under the car, trying to find what the problem is, and he pulls out something from underneath the car. The car's obviously picked something up on the way to the start line, and that is not an ideal preparation at all for Tyrone Tremaine. After the burnout problems, after the staging problems, Lee Bektash is sitting there waiting patiently on the other side of the racetrack. He's probably getting a little bit impatient here. This is a championship race, remember. It's all on the line. And it's over. After all the problems on the start line, you wouldn't believe it. Tyrone Tremaine takes home the win. You can see his wife, Relinia, absolutely pumped on the start line. Aaron Tremaine over the moon as well for his brother. A great run, 7:02 in the end, and getting some serious airtime there on the start line as well. Let's have a look at the replay. He was first off the start line. He went 0.27 on the reaction time. Lee Bektash was 0.36, only 9 thousandths of a second behind him. But it was right about here that Bektash got into trouble. You see the car moving way over near the wall, and once you're out of the groove in these Pro Stock cars, you've got to drop the chute, you've got to roll out of it. You don't have any choice whatsoever. This is going to be a very, very telling shot. You can see he's got a lot of lock cranked into that steering wheel, and he reaches up for the chutes. He knows that run's done. The good news is he comes back with a car for another day. And as we go on board with Tyrone Tremaine, this is just about a flawless run for him. Maybe a little bit late on the shift points there, but still, he gets the trophy at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was great, eh? It's good to be out here racing someone as good as Lee, and actually getting to beat him. He's beat me a fair few times now, so it's good to get one back.
You were just having a conversation with him about the lights. There was a little bit of an issue there for you?
Yeah, I don't know why. I went to roll the car in and the light started triggering and the car wasn't even in the stage, so I don't know what was happening.
On next week's show, we have got the Supermen of drag racing, the top bikes coming your way. Well, congratulations to Tyrone Tremaine, the first winner under the 400 Thunder Series in Pro Stock. He's earned it this weekend. Well, that puts the exclamation point on Pro Stock from Sydney. Stick with us next week. We'll see you next time.